things with winter squash, and we've asked Tammy to do something with a spaghetti squash. So I'm looking forward to this recipe.
Okay. So this is a recipe I make for myself and my boys. It's a little healthier than the processed, carbohydrate-rich pastas. So it's an alternative to spaghetti. So this is a spaghetti squash, actually quite a large one. The most difficult part of this recipe is cutting the squash. So I went ahead and did that at home. But basically, to cut it fairly safely, cut the end off, the end that has the stem. You could cut both ends to make like a flat surface, and then turn it upright. And to get it started, just put the point of a sharp, like butcher's knife, in like this, and kind of rock down both sides and cut through. So when you open it up, there'll be seeds inside. I've already scooped the seeds off of this side, but you just pick it up and use a large spoon and scoop all the seeds and kind of some of those inside parts out. Move over here. You can discard what you scoop out, or what I like to do, I like to separate out and wash the seeds and roast them like roasted pumpkin seeds. You can do the same thing with really any kind of winter squash seeds. Okay, so once you have everything scooped out, I usually put about a teaspoon of avocado or olive oil in each half. There we go. And then you can spread that around, kind of coating all the sides. If you're trying to cut or do lower fat, you can skip this step. And while you're doing this, you can have the oven preheating to 400 degrees. Okay, and then I also sprinkle some salt. And you can either do garlic powder or garlic salt, or I do have some fresh garlic pressed there, minced garlic. And then I like to put basil too. You can do some other things like oregano as well. Okay, and I kind of spread that around too with the little baster.
I really like that. I hadn't thought about doing these seasonings before you bake it, so that gives it that extra baked in flavor.
Some of the flavor, yep, bakes in. Okay. And there's several different ways, like if you did a search for how to cook spaghetti squash, there's several different ways that people do it, but some put water in the bottom to help steam it. I've just been putting it upside down on a tray. You can grease the tray beforehand, or put parchment paper down so it's easy cleanup afterwards, and then put it in the oven for 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the size of the winter squash, the spaghetti squash. The larger squashes will need probably closer to 40, 45 minutes. Smaller squashes, just 30 minutes. Okay, so while the spaghetti squash is baking, we are gonna go ahead and make a spicy, chunky sauce to go with it. So we already have the hot plate going. I'm gonna put about a tablespoon of avocado oil in the pan. And you could saute with water too, again, if you want to cut down. Actually, I'm doing a double recipe, so I'm going to put 2 tablespoons. Okay, and once the oil is heated up a little bit, I'm going to add some minced garlic. This is probably about 4 to 5 cloves, small cloves. For a single recipe, probably about 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of garlic. And then you probably want to let that fry for about a minute or two, a couple minutes once the pan's hot. And then the other ingredients are, I use an onion, one large onion. This is too large, about 2 cups here for a double recipe. 8 ounces of mushrooms, 1 to 2 zucchini, and the garlic. Again, depending on how chunky you want your sauce, you can dice everything real fine, or if you want it chunkier, then I think with the zucchini, I just quartered it lengthwise and then chopped it from there. I'm going to go ahead and add some of the other seasonings. I put everything in here already, but it's for a single recipe, 1 teaspoon of onion powder or onion granules, half a teaspoon of garlic granules, about 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of basil. You can add oregano, which I actually hadn't put in here yet. I think I'll put a teaspoon of oregano. And then optional, I like to add it though, it gives the sauce a nice warmth, is about 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Okay, can you cut there? Because this isn't heating up really very fast. You can cut a bunch of that time out, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to add the onions. And again, we'll let them saute for a couple minutes. Okay, well that's sauteing for a little while. I'm going to show you how I do my my roasted pumpkin seeds or squash seeds. So I've separated them out from all of the stringy guts, I guess, the guts of the squash, and then washed them. And then I just kind of lay them out on a pan. And just put a little bit of oil and a little bit of salt. I'm going to grab a spoon to mix that up. You could probably mix this in a little bowl first and then spread them out on the parchment paper. I've just lined a pan with parchment paper here. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You could, I like the slower method where you put it in the oven on 200, 225 for about 2 hours. Or I think you could do it a little higher, just shorter time, like 20 to 30 minutes on maybe 350, 375. Okay, the onions are starting to get a little tender here, so I'm going to add the mushrooms and then the zucchini. And then let those saute again, probably for another 5 minutes or so. I like my veggies being still a little bit crisp or crunchy, not necessarily crunchy, but not soggy either. So we'll try not to overdo them, especially if you're gonna bake once you put it all together, if you're gonna bake it as well, or if you're going to put it in the fridge to store for later, and then you're gonna bake it to rewarm it, then you don't wanna overcook the zucchini. Okay, I think I'm gonna put a lid on that and then we'll go and make the Parmesan. Okay, while that's simmering, I am going to make a vegan Parmesan to top it with. So this is a recipe that I found on the Minimalist Baker. So it's minimalistbaker.com, and it's just vegan Parmesan cheese. The single recipe is 3/4 cups of raw cashews. I'm doubling it, so I'm doing 1.5 cups. And then it's 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. And I'm, again, doubling, so I'll do 6. Okay, and then it's 3/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'll do 1.5. And then 1/4 teaspoon of garlic granules. So I'll do 1/2. And that is it for the ingredients. We'll put the lid on, and then you want to be on the low variable speed and just turn it on and slowly turn it up. Okay, and you don't want to over process this because then it'll get kind of clumpy and start sticking together. You want it to be kind of like a nice loose consistency. So we'll pour that in another container and then check on our veggies. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so once the veggies are ready, we'll add some sauce that we're preheating over on the stove. And then we'll scoop out our spaghetti squash and combine it all and it'll be ready. That looks good. Okay. Watch for splatters. So for a single recipe, you'll probably want just a single jar, a smaller jar of sauce here. That was a larger jar, so this is like a 25-ounce jar of tomato basil or marinara. Your preference, your choice there.
That is looking fantastic.
Do you want to stir that? And then I'll scoop
Sure.
out. So here's the finished squash. Move over more. Okay, so the squash will come out of the oven and look kind of like this. And you'll see how easily it just scrapes away from the sides here. And I'll put it in this container over here. You can see the stringy consistency or texture. And actually, I'm going to add this directly to this big pan because that's an easier place to mix it all in. Okay. Have to kind of separate out the little strands a little bit as you mix it into the sauce. Got it? Yeah, a fork would be useful to help separating everything out.
Oh, that's looking good.
One more.
I'm seeing those spices that you baked it with. That looks and for those of you that are wondering, it's even really good.
Just plain?
Just plain. Yeah. Because you seasoned it well. Mm-hmm. That made a difference.
All right, so once this is all mixed in, it's really ready to eat. You can serve it right out of this pan, or if you're preparing it for a later meal, you can put it in a dish, put it in the fridge, cover it. It keeps up to 4 or 5 days in the fridge. And then when we serve it, we just top it. Each person can top it with the Parmesan cheese. And if you like to spice it up a little bit too, we put the crushed red pepper on it as well. Red pepper flakes. So that is it.
All right, this looks fantastic. I am going to take a little bite and tempt you all. You're going to love it. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, Christine.
Yes.
We met, and you've been interested in kind of a healthy lifestyle, kind of a not only lifestyle but healthy eating. And so when we talked about we're doing demos, you suggested that you had a good almond milk recipe. So I'm excited to see that. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. I became very interested in health actually at a pretty young age, but about 20 years ago, I had some major issues where it took me a little while to figure out I needed to be gluten-free. A lot of hormonal changes in age, and also a brother and a mother who were diabetic. So that really encouraged me to learn how to make things that would be suitable for just about anybody.
Okay. And what are some of the things, the pastimes you enjoy doing?
Hiking.
Okay.
If I can find people healthy enough to hike with me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do like creating recipes, and I've been doing that for a very long time.
Okay, well, share this recipe with us.
Okay. So my recipe is well, actually I'm going to start out making basic almond milk. And I've created recipes that I call easy peasy lifestyle recipes. I also practice doing a lot of food, raw food, and the process of soaking your nuts and straining your nuts, and especially if you're using almonds, and then, of course, taking the skins off the nuts, was very time consuming. And we really have to start the day before, the night before. So I did a little bit more research and found out I can make great tasting almond milk with almond flour. And Costco is a great place to buy your almond flour. It's a very fine textured, high quality almond flour. And when I want to do a longer process, I do. But I like keeping everything simple, and I want to use as few ingredients as possible. And I prefer not using processed ingredients. So I'm interested in making things from scratch as much as possible. So what we're going to be doing is another interesting thing about processed almond milk is that there's hardly any almonds in your almond milk. A really interesting video to watch is called, it's by Bobby from Flav City. And he says, this, you can find this on YouTube, he says, there's really no almonds in your almond milk. And there's primarily water, emulsifiers, and natural flavors. And the thing about natural flavors, that usually means artificial flavors. They're vitamin fortified, and usually the crummy kinds of fortification. Calcium carbonate is not really healthy for your body, and it's hard to absorb. There's really only about 2% almonds in your almond milk. So we're about to make a very healthy version. And you don't necessarily need a high-speed, expensive blender. You can use your standard blender. But what I'm going to start with is 3 cups of water. You can actually make this thinner if you like. You can use 1 more cup of water when it's done, and it depends on what you're using it for. You can make it thicker to use as a coffee creamer, or use as a topping over berries or something like that for breakfast, and which I personally like a healthier, thicker version. And almond flour. So it's 3 cups of water so far, and 1 cup of almond flour. These are a fourth. It's very scientific. That equals 1 cup. And I'm also going, in this case, I'm using dates, but I'm actually only going to be using 2 dates. And I just slice them a little bit so they process quicker. If you have older dates, you can also soak them for a few minutes. I'm only putting 2 dates in, but you can use xylitol, you can use stevia, you can use maple syrup, honey, whatever sweetener of your choice. I personally try to, and actually, of course, you can use more dates, but I was concerned about how it would affect a diabetic, so I keep it on the lower sweet side. A pinch of salt, some organic vanilla, and when I use stevia, personally I also do use a liquid stevia. I think that's everything. Actually, you can make this recipe also with hemp seeds if you have a problem with almonds. If you would like to add something to act like an emulsifier, you can use sunflower, lecithin, gar gum, It's not necessary, just make sure you shake it up. And the other reason I like using 3 cups of water is because it fits in this canning jar perfectly. That is almond milk, and it's great when it's cold. Stick it in the refrigerator, and I have it whenever I need it. I didn't have to go to the store.
Okay, so I think you're going to take something with some almond milk now
Yes.
and make a special drink out of it.
I am. This is my coffee substitute. I'm going to, in this case, I'm just using, I could use that milk, but I'm going to show you something even easier if you're making a drink for yourself. 1 cup of water. And now, normally the almond flour to water would be 1 to 4. My other recipe was 1 to 3. But I'm using 1 cup of water and 1/4 cup of almond flour. I'm getting, this recipe is called Sweet Spicy Cocoa Butter Date Latte. And you can use coconut butter or real butter or MCT oil or anything of your choice. You can even use cacao. So in my case, I'm going to be using coconut butter. So we have the water and the almond flour. And in the meantime, also over here, I've got my hot pot to have my added 1 cup will be hot water. Okay, so this time, I can shake it up and I can use other sweeteners. I'm going to just use 1 date, but I'm going to add some stevia. So if you have someone who's particularly sensitive to any kind of sweetener, then just replace it with stevia. I'm going to use some vanilla. My pinch of salt. Cardamom. Half a teaspoon. Okay, that's about half a teaspoon. And if you want to spice it up a little bit, even a little bit more, tiny bit of cayenne, and watch it on the cayenne. I'm also using turmeric powder, and I'm using, you can use 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of turmeric. We're going to sprinkle cinnamon on top. Oh, very important ingredient is black pepper when you're using turmeric. And you can even add something like, this is an essential oil of wild orange. This is optional, but peppermint would be good. You can get as creative as you want. So we're going to press this for just a few seconds. And I'm going to take I'm going to have an opening here so when I pour in my hot water, the steam can escape. 1 cup of hot water. And just going to watch it. Start out on low. All right, this is my sweet, spicy cocoa butter date latte drink. I have one of these, different variations almost every day. It's a beautiful golden color and a little bit of cinnamon sprinkled on top. It's better than Starbucks because you know what's in it. Would you like to try?
I would love to try it. That looks beautiful.
Needs
That's nice.
You can have as much sweetener as you want.
Nope, that's plenty. It's just like that. And it smells so good too, because I could smell it and then the taste. This is awesome. I really like this. What a good, healthy start of the morning. Great.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.